Welcome to episode 101 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. The triple digits have a nice ring to it. I'm liking it already. Episode 101. We have more to talk about this week than we anticipated. We were anticipating the schedule release. Could have had plenty to talk about with just the schedule, but that's not it. Something else happened this week, something big for the Ravens, and it could have been a lot worse. I think I'll start by saying that. Still not the best look, and that is the Earl Thomas incident that happened. We're going to go over that, and I don't know how long we're going to spend on it. There's kind of a lot to unpack, and I don't know. It's been a couple days. Things have settled down a little bit, and this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. This won't be an instant reaction to it. We've had some time to sit with it, but still we might go a while on that. And then after that, we're going to go through the Ravens' 2020 schedule, or what we hope will be the 2020 schedule if we hopefully have football this coming season. And it's an interesting schedule. It's not, we knew going in who the opponents were going to be. Didn't know the order, obviously. Didn't know what was going to be prime time, what wasn't. Numbers-wise, based on records from last year, they would have the easiest schedule in the league, which is, I don't think you can, I don't know, I think that's pretty rare when you're coming off of a 14-2 season playoff team like that to be set up the next year with such a favorable schedule, but that's the way things are shaking out. And again, hopefully the Ravens actually do get to play, but for now we can look forward and hopefully, daydream a little bit about football coming back and some of these potential matchups. So we'll go through, probably won't have something to say about every matchup, but we'll highlight the big ones and kind of the key stretches of the schedule that we think will either be tough or a good favorable stretch. And we'll wrap it up after that. So we'll see how long it goes. But to kick things off, like I said, we have this Earl Thomas story that late Wednesday night, I want to say around 11, because I was getting ready to leave work, I saw all this stuff popping up on Twitter about Earl Thomas posting this video on his Instagram saying that a TMZ article is coming. It was like a warning from him saying, hey, my agent just told me a TMZ is releasing a story about an incident that occurred between me and my wife last month. Right off the bat, my mind is going to the worst. It's not an Earl thing. It's just it's an NFL thing. We've seen this many, many times. I feel like we've seen at least one major domestic violence accusation come out against an NFL player every year going back. I don't even know how many years. It's just been it's rampant. So you can't be surprised when your mind immediately goes to the worst there. I'll start by saying that. In reality, what actually happened and what this whole incident was something that I don't think anyone could have predicted. Just a quick recap, because we've all heard the story by now. But Earl was essentially caught cheating on his wife. She was not happy about it. Went to confront him. Her intentions appeared to be to scare him by turning a gun on him without the clip or the magazine in it. She didn't know that there was one in the chamber, though, and she still, if she pulled the trigger, could have killed him. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and they both made it out unscathed, relatively. There's a lot more to it. His brother's involved. His brother was the one that picked him up from his house, separated him from his wife when they were in the middle of some sort of argument. They went to a rental home, and that's where the cheating happened. Earl's brother was also cheating on his wife, apparently. There was a whole mess. And the whole thing that everyone's focusing in on, which has been disproven, they were not in the same bed as much as the TMZ article made it sound like they were. The police report says they were not in the same room. That is not damage control. That's not, something that's come out after the fact. That's in the original police report. Shout out to Jonas Schaefer of the Baltimore Sun for doing his best to try to spread that correct information with all the memes floating around of Earl and his brother. As funny as they were, not true. So there's your story, the basics of it, the best I could describe it. And like I said before, this could have been a lot worse. Obviously, we're thankful it was not a Ray Rice situation. We're also thankful it was not a Steve McNair situation. And both parties left unhurt relatively, and I can't comment on their relationship. I feel bad for the kids. If there's anyone I feel bad for in the situation, it's definitely the kids.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's more sad than anything else. I understand that people like to make light of situations, and it's fun to make jokes about things, but this is a real marriage and a real family that is now going to be hard pressed to kind of mend fences and see if they can make it work. Imagine being, his kids, I think one of his kids is probably about schooling age. And at some point they'll eventually find out that this story is out there. Not only that their father cheated on their mother with, what sounds to be, it could be other women, it could be an escort service, whatever you want to call it. His brother helped him do it, and his mom went with her friends wielding knives and guns to scare them. And his mom, their mom didn't know that one pull of the trigger and their father could have been dead. I know that we like to make light of situations and try to see the humor and everything, but to me, it wasn't funny. And maybe that's me being kind of a little bitch, but it's more sad than it is anything. A family now is at a crossroads, and thankfully, she never pulled the trigger. You've got to wonder about the overall health of the relationship and the family. That was where my mind went first. This is way, way bigger than football to me. But I was really happy to see that nothing, that terrible happened. Infidelity is terrible. Domestic violence, which is what this is, whether anybody wants to say so or not, is terrible. So, I don't know. My first reaction to the story was, man, this isn't a very good look regardless. You could say, Earl, it is the victim here, but everybody has different moral high grounds. And we saw that after this story was reported. People saying, this is wrong of Earl. This is, conduct unbecoming a Raven, things of that nature. Others even going further, saying there could be discipline involved here. I don't see that happening. But at the end of the day, when these types of incidents come up, it's hard for me to believe this is the first time something like this has happened one way or the other. Whether it be Earl on his wife, the wife on Earl, them fighting each other. You just have to hope and pray that this is maybe the wake-up call they need to get the help that they really, really need to kind of get their relationship back on track.
Absolutely. And as I said before, I can't really comment on the relationship aspect. I won't go there. I agree with Ian. It's not our business. But what I can comment on is Earl's kind of response, because that's really the only thing I had a problem with is his video, first and foremost, on that late Wednesday night. His choice of words and everything, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Everyone is obviously
100% with you.
Going to the big quote, which has become a meme at this point, the stuff happens, which is just, you have to laugh at that, because if this is just stuff happens, what is actually serious to Earl Thomas?
Well, and how much other stuff is happening?
Right.
That's where I go with it. And I'm with you. I didn't like the video either.
So that wasn't the only quote. The other thing that rubbed me the wrong way, and this really isn't the biggest issue, but it just kind of made Earl look stupid, in my opinion, he's saying, I don't know how this got out there. It happened a month ago, and it was a private family matter, and I hope you can respect that. That's the world we live in. He said that in reference to this information getting out. Hey, Earl, it's public record. How do you think TMZ got this story? There wasn't a rat, there wasn't a snitch that leaked this story to the media. If that was the case, they would have gotten a hold of it like a day or two after it happened.
Right.
TMZ learned about this through court documents, like anybody in the public could have. And I got news for you. TMZ of all organizations probably has a dedicated department just for scouring court documents and police reports. They're in that business of pulling up dirt on anyone. So to think that this wasn't going to get out at some point, I just don't understand it. You're lucky it didn't get out until now. I mean, I'm shocked it didn't come out within the week. And then that leads me to my last point, which is if the Ravens are correct and telling the truth when they say they learned about it with the rest of us on Thursday, early Thursday morning, late Wednesday night, Earl did not tell the team after it happened. I'm not saying he had to pick up the phone right after his wife got arrested and he's sitting there in his underwear and he has to call up, DaCosta and management and everything. I'm not saying that, but within a day or two, I think it's reasonable to contact your team. And you can't equate this to any other profession. So people saying, oh, I wouldn't tell my boss if this happened to me. It's different. You're in the NFL. You're in the public eye. You can't compare it, especially when you are, quote unquote, the victim here. As much as I don't really want to say that word, you did have the weapon turned on you. Yes, you caused this by cheating, but you didn't hit her. You're not committing domestic violence against her. Why would you not, in this case, in this specific incident that we know of, why would you not tell the team? It's embarrassing. It's family business. It's something I obviously wouldn't want getting out there if it was me. So I understand that, but I feel like it's your duty as a player to tell the team in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I didn't like the video. It came off as very reactionary. I didn't really feel any sadness or remorse about the situation from him. It was very matter of fact too. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. You and your wife might get in a shouting match sometimes. That's stuff that happens. An affair at an Airbnb with your brother and some strippers, and your wife tracks you down. I mean, this isn't everyday stuff that he was referring to. And as far as the team not knowing, it's a really tough situation. Maybe he was just hoping it would never come out and it could be swept under the rug. But at the end of the day, man, this is the profession that you chose, and whether it's fair or not, this is the world that the high-profile folks live in. They can't have these things happen without it getting out there, without the story becoming what it has the past few days. I think overall for me, listen, I think I've gone on the record before. I'm not a big Earl Thomas fan. I never was before he came here. And then a couple times this year, he was running his mouth at different points in time, and I don't like that either. And this is just another, again, he's the air quotes victim. But this is another situation where, it would have been nice to not have to deal with this the night before the schedule released.
Yeah, as far as his employment is concerned, I would agree with the masses and say that I think it's highly unlikely that he gets released by the Ravens or there's any sort of suspension handed down by the league based on what we know from this incident. Again, we've said it a couple times here. If there is more to either this incident or there is more that has that has happened in the past between him and his wife that comes to light, at that point you would reevaluate based on what comes out. But based on what we know now from this incident, I don't think any punishment comes down, and I don't think Earl is cut from the team.
Right. I agree with that as well.
That's not a hot take at all. But all right. So yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. Again, did not anticipate talking about this. As we've said it many times on this podcast, no news is good news, and as we continue to get through this off season and we're dealing with all this other stuff, a mass pandemic, it would be nice if we didn't have any other BS like this going on. So,
and the Ravens tend to have an incident or two every offseason like this. Not to this level, of course, where someone could have died. But it seems like, we've kind of had the bad boy persona. And it's an NFL-wide thing, like you said. I don't think it's uncommon, but it seems like the Ravens have pretty typically had some sort of issue come up in the offseason. And like you said, right now, this is the no news is good news season.
All right, well, speaking of the regular season, we have the Ravens 2020 schedule. It was released on Thursday. Right off the bat, I know this has already been said just so much. What is the point of the 3-hour release show? I know they do a release show every year, but I got sort of the appeal this year with nothing else to watch, why some people would tune in. But to me, that becomes just completely negated when you let every team release their own schedule a half an hour before your 3-hour show or extravaganza is going to begin. Like, why would you not tell all the teams they're not allowed to release the schedule and people have to wait to see it in the show? There's really no point to watch even 10 minutes of this show, let alone 3 hours.
Well, and how many leaks do you see even before that half an hour release? I mean, I'll be honest, I had the schedule around 3 o'clock. And I don't have any real connections. I've got friends that I talk to that have the connections, and they're like, "Hey, man, you want to see the schedule?" Like that's goes on all the time. And it's fun to have it before everyone, but like you said, I mean, it would be cool if nobody told anybody what was going on, and it could actually become a schedule release show instead of what I call it is a schedule analysis show, because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, you don't need 3 hours to show the schedules and go through them. There's more to it, obviously, but I mean, with the leaks, like the league can still pass them off as just exactly what they are. They're leaks. They're not confirmed. They're not coming from a confirmed source. To allow the teams themselves, like the verified Twitter accounts, and from a verified source to release the schedule before your show, it just seems stupid. Like if you prevented that, yeah, the leaks are still going to be there, but there's still that speculation and wondering of, oh, is this legit?
I agree with that. That's definitely a next level leak. I mean, it's not a leak at that point. It's reality.
But anyway, we probably won't have something to say about every game on the schedule, but I do probably have a comment about a good portion of them. So we'll just start right at the top, and it would help if I pulled up the schedule here.
Well, I can tell you the Ravens are slated to open at 1 p.m. on September the 13th against Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Paper Champ Browns.
Kicking it off with a division matchup. Good to have that one at home. What I immediately noticed here is these first 3 weeks, obviously we'll get to that Monday night matchup in a little bit, a tough stretch to open the season. First 3 games, a division matchup against Cleveland, who, again, probably overrated. Well, I'll say probably, but again, we don't know. Like last year they were overrated, but maybe they put it together this year. I don't know.
And they beat us last year when they were overrated here. So.
Right, yeah. I think they're definitely a threat to split against the Ravens as is. And, a division matchup, even when the Browns were bad, they always played the Ravens close. So
yeah,
any division matchup put in a stretch of tough games, it's going to just make it worse. So, it's week 1 and you're at home. I would still give the Ravens the edge, but when you look at this 3-game stretch as a whole, Cleveland, Houston on the road, and then come back and play a Monday night game against Super Bowl champs, a team that you haven't beat with Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. You're 0-2 against them. Both of those games played in Kansas City. You finally get one here in Baltimore. But you could, again, no one's going to like me saying this, but it's not impossible for the Ravens to come out of that 0-3.
Oh, you pessimist son of a bitch. How dare you? How dare you with your pessimism?
1-2 at worst.
I think 1-2 would be the absolute worst case scenario. If they come out of that stretch 0-3, oh my dear God, this fan base and all their Super Bowl hype and oh God, social media would be relentless against these people. The 15-1ers of the world. But no, they're not coming out of that stretch 0-3, and I am king pessimism as I have been billed. So, but yeah, I thought the same. I mean, what a chance for the Browns to make a statement in week 1. coming into Baltimore week 1, nobody thinks anybody's going to touch the Ravens in the division this year. If they could come in here and get a win or be really competitive, that really would raise an eye, at least for me, that maybe this is the year the Browns figure it out. I know they beat us here in week 4 last year, but remember, the Ravens were kind of at a crossroads at that point. They were 2-2. The defense was a mess. This Ravens team now, I think if you asked even the most pessimistic of fans, 11 wins is the floor for me. And I'm not Mr. Optimism in any way. Something would have to go very wrong for them to be worse than an 11-win team. So that's a big moment for Mayfield and the Browns and new coach Kevin Stefanski to kind of see how they measure up against one of the elite teams in the league in week 1.
So yeah, Again, I'm doubling down. It's not impossible for the Ravens to go 0-3. Looking at the context of those 3 games, none of those games are tough. Do I think it's likely they walk away 0-3? No. 1-2 at worst. I'll say that. The good news is in week 4, you get what is essentially a 9th home game playing in Landover, Maryland against the Redskins. That place is going to be all purple, all Ravens fans.
I'll be there.
Yeah, it's an attractive road game if you're not someone that typically travels. Just head right down the road. Cheap tickets, I'm sure. Scoop those up and, yeah, be friendly territory. It's basically going to be like M&T Bank Stadium. So Ravens get an extra home game there. And it is nice placement. If they do get off to a rough start, let's say 1-2, you get that game against the Redskins. That's a good bounce-back opportunity right there. Next up, you have Bengals, another division matchup. First matchup against Joe Burrow, at least what we think, assuming he's going to start right away or doesn't get hurt, something like that. That will be the Ravens' first matchup against Joe Burrow, his first trip to M&T Bank Stadium. After that is the Eagles. Now, this is an interesting one because I'm like you. I saw you tweet this out. I was desperately hoping this was not going to be a primetime game, and I am so thankful this is a regular Sunday at 1 p.m. Still going to be tough, in my opinion. Eagles are just a weird team. You might get them on a down week where they look like the worst team in the league, and then the next week they're world beaters, and they look like Super Bowl champs. Yeah, I think this is a tough one. And
I've been tweeting out some fun schedule stuff, too. The Eagles have won 68% of their home games in the last 5 years. So whether you think they're good or not, they don't lose at home very often.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely, I was probably supported too. I feel like they always show up in prime time, especially at home. So that would have been probably would have chalked that up as a loss if the Ravens are playing there in prime time. But we'll see. Obviously, you got the context of the season when we get there, how they're playing up until that point. Same thing can be said about the Eagles. But we'll see. Right now, I do have that highlighted as a tough matchup. It's a standout matchup.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It could also be one of the few games, depending on, like you said, how the season shakes out to that point. The Ravens don't figure to be underdogs very often. If the Eagles get off to a hot start, it's possible they could be underdogs in that game. And that could be one of the only 2 or 3 games all year they end up being an underdog. Also, I intend to go to that one, so I'll let you know if this hellacious Philadelphia crowd is as tough as everyone makes it out to be.
Will you be wearing Ravens gear?
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Oh, man. I can't do it. I would never go to Philadelphia and watch the Ravens play. I can't do it. I've seen too many videos. I've heard too many horror stories. I respect it. I'm going to keep my distance. And
I'm going to go with some Eagles fans, though, so hopefully they'll help kind of insulate us a little bit. But,
that might help.
I don't expect to have any problems. I know it's supposed to be this wild and crazy tough place to go. So we went and hung out with the Bills Mafia last year, and those guys were great. So we'll see how it turns out. Like I said, I just hope the fans are able to go so we can hit both of those up.
I think there's a big difference between the Bills fan base and the Eagles. The Bills fan base, while they're rowdy and wild, feel like they're maybe more welcoming.
Fun, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
If you show up to the tailgate wearing a Ravens jersey, but you bring some booze, they'll probably welcome you in with open arms.
Yeah, I guess there is a little bit of a difference.
Eagles fans will jump you and take your booze and leave you there on the ground. So, you won't catch me there. But next up after that, we got first Steelers matchup. Ravens hosting this one, 1 o'clock game, October 25th. Always tough. The
return of Chubbs Roethlisberger.
Yeah, assuming he's healthy for that one, but he's supposed to be back this year. And I'll say this, it'd be nice to get a Roethlisberger and Lamar matchup. I want to see that.
As long as the Ravens win.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. A part of me is going to miss Big Ben when he's gone.
Oh, no way, man.
A small
Fuck
part
that
of
guy.
I feel the same about Brady, and we'll talk about that coming up when the Ravens play the Patriots.
It's a respect thing. I get it.
But you kind of it's so satisfying when you beat them, or you beat the Tom Brady's and the Roethlisberger and the tough division matchups like that. So we'll see who's playing quarterback at that point. As we know, Roethlisberger, a lot of injuries, especially recently. So
he'll be in the walking boot leading up to that game. Either way, we know that.
Absolutely. Real or not, he'll be in the walking boot. After that, here's another interesting one. On the road against Indianapolis. This is coming off a bye, by the way. The Week 7 against Pittsburgh. They have the bye Week 8. Come off of that and go to Indy to play the Colts. Interesting there. Don't really know what the Colts are going to be like this year, but it is pretty good bye week placement there. I like it right in the middle of the season, and traditionally the Ravens are fantastic coming off a bye, so it's nice to have a road game there after the bye. Take advantage of that, and it's besides Houston, that's probably one of your longest road trips is to Indy.
Yeah, they travel the least of any team in the league. I'm probably going to travel out for that one as well. Indianapolis has been one we've talked about for the past year. Me and my buddy who go out to all the games, we've been saying that's going to be the one that we actually take a flight for, and like I said, God willing, we will be there.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, definitely like having the bye before that because while the Colts aren't the toughest or one of the 3 toughest games even, it's not a pushover matchup. So
they're a threat. They're a threat to be a playoff team this year.
But that's what I'm saying is you never want to let's say the Ravens had their bye week here and then they were playing the Redskins after that. It just feels like a waste. I mean, I can't say the bye week is a complete waste. Everyone's getting healthy and all that, but you'd much rather have one of your tougher matchups coming out of the bye.
Completely agreed with that. Unless, hey man, maybe Dwayne Haskins is the truth, bro.
I can't count him out. You never know. But I don't think the Redskins are winning many games this year. After Indy, we have a Sunday night matchup in Foxborough. As I was just saying earlier, Brady no longer in New England. As of right now, Jared Stidham is their prospective starting quarterback. Still a talented team. As long as Bill Belichick's going to be the head coach, I trust them to be competitive. But the matchup between Ravens and New England, it loses a little bit of steam when you take Brady out of the equation. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the other things in the schedule that I didn't want. I didn't want New England later in the year at night. And what did I get? I got both later in the year and at night. Listen, this might come off as controversial, and I'm in no way saying that Jared Stidham can hold Tom Brady's jockstrap. But if Jared Stidham is like Jacoby Brissett, just kind of okay, New England's defense is good enough for them to be a 9-win team. I mean, I don't see any way around that. In road night games, always tougher to win. I don't care what anybody says. 1 o'clock is the time to play road games. Look how stoked people get for night games around here as often as the Ravens win. And I find it hard to believe Bill Belichick's going to go into the season with a lame duck at quarterback. He must really like this guy or think he can get him there at some point. And if Stidham is okay and he's going to get better as the season goes along and the reps come along, this wasn't a matchup that I wanted. I didn't want a night game. I didn't want it late in the season. So we'll see. I mean, they could totally bottom out and be bad like some people are predicting. But we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully New England's terrible and this becomes a layup for the Ravens, but I agree with you. It's one of the tougher games of the season for me. Honestly, they ended up with a lot more difficult matchups than I thought, but we'll get into some of those later.
Yeah, while they do record-wise and statistically have what we're calling the easiest schedule, I know we make fun of the rampant optimism, if you even want to call it. It's blind optimism in the fan base sometimes, with people saying, oh, they're going to win 14 games again this year. They could. I'm not going to shoot that down immediately, but again, 14-2, even for good teams, is rare. It just doesn't happen. So I can't be that blind, but I agree with you earlier. I think
not in back-to-back years.
Yeah, I think 10, 11 wins is the floor. I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs or be, a 9-7 team or anything like that, but they might not come. They might win 10 or 11. And if you think that's a significant downgrade from last year, then okay. But, if they get to the playoffs again, that's all that matters. And really what they do in January is going to be what defines the Ravens.
Exactly. That's all that truly matters. I don't care about this week 3 matchup with the Chiefs, to be honest with you. Like, if the Ravens lose that game, whatever, I'm over it. I know a lot of people really want that game because they think it'll, send a message or something. I'm not buying that crap.
I don't look at it like that. I just look at it as, you got the primetime game and now you're hosting. Now the Mahomes finally comes to Baltimore. We're tired not going there anymore. And I think people were even more excited about it because we all were looking ahead in the playoffs last year and that, Kansas City's coming to Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. It's a guarantee to happen. That's what's happening. And then the Titans, who we're going to talk about here, Week 11, Titans came in and shot that down. So speaking of the Titans, Week 11, they're coming back to Baltimore. This is a revenge game. I'm excited for this one too. I think the Ravens got to come out in this one, and the whole statement thing. I say it in jest, but getting a win here or a convincing win here would, I think, give you some momentum, make you feel good, exercise those demons a little bit. I don't know. That and the Chiefs game, I think, would really make the fan base feel really good if you get wins against the Titans and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think people really want those games. I'm less of a revenge. It's not revenge. The Ravens beat the Titans. Whoop-de-doo. The Titans smacked the Ravens' teeth in the playoff game. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Maybe that helps people feel better or it takes the sting out of it. But for me, that loss, hopefully will be the most disappointing Ravens loss I ever have to experience. I would find it extremely difficult for something to top that. The Cundiff game is up there too for me. But with all the expectations of that one, would it be nice to beat the Titans? Would I be would I feel good about that? Yeah, but the revenge thing, it falls flat for me. But that's just me. I know other people are God, I want to crush the Titans. It's going to be great. Getting that revenge, it doesn't measure up for me. But
it really doesn't mean much, but I think it could be a momentum builder game. Again, we have to see where the Ravens are at that point in the season. You got to know the context. Are the Titans, are they in the hunt for a playoff spot again at that point? There's a lot that goes into it. Week 12, this is the one that, besides the Chiefs game, this is the one everyone's talking about. Thanksgiving, the Ravens are playing on Thanksgiving for the third time in team history. This time they're playing their first road game on Thanksgiving, and they are going to Pittsburgh. Of course, it has to be Pittsburgh. I know the Ravens, in their 2 previous Thanksgiving games that they hosted, both of those, they beat the 49ers in 2011, and then they beat the Steelers in 2013. Both of those were classic games. That Steelers one was the Mike Tomlin tripping game. Just instant classics in a storied rivalry. That one definitely sticks out as a popular game. Yeah, I'm not thrilled about going on the road here, but after hosting 2 Thanksgiving games, I think it's only right. But I know everyone's going to immediately think of the Ravens beating them in 2013, but pessimistic Nolan is coming out again here. What I immediately think of is playing in Pittsburgh on Christmas
and freaking New Year's Eve too.
New Year's Eve
not
against
New
the
Year's Eve.
Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So recent holidays games have not been very good to the Ravens, but when we're talking about Pittsburgh, that Christmas game immediately comes to mind. Again, different holiday if you're believing superstitions and stuff like that, but again, the Ravens are going on the road here. They're not hosting. It's a division matchup. Steelers are going to be amped for that game. They ruined my Christmas. Antonio Brown ruined my Christmas in 2016. Really, I should say the Ravens defense ruined my Christmas, but any extra jab I can throw at Antonio Brown, I'm going to do it. It's such a gamble when your team plays on a holiday like that, Thanksgiving or Christmas, and this is why I just am so glad I'm not like a Cowboys fan. Could you imagine having the Ravens play on Thanksgiving every year and having that be part of your holiday tradition?
No, I would hate it.
I don't think I'd like Thanksgiving. I don't think I would look forward to it. It's just so much added stress. It's fun every once in a while, but it's such a gamble. Like if the Ravens win on Thanksgiving or Christmas, it makes the holiday 10 times better. But if they lose, it completely ruins the holiday. It's either completely good or completely bad. There's no middle ground.
Oh, no doubt. And it becomes something you always remember. Like every time Thanksgiving comes around, you think, or at least for me, every time Christmas Eve, and there's football on, I'm like, remember that time the Ravens choked away that game in Pittsburgh? And every single, New Year's Eve, they would play on New Year's Eve again. I'm like, remember that time the Ravens choked away the playoffs against Cincinnati? Like, those things will always come up if you're a more aggressive / diehard type of fan. And again, I didn't want Pittsburgh at night on the road. You don't want to play division road night games if you can help it. It's not very advantageous. At some point, I'll work up a stat for divisional road night record and see kind of how that falls. Plus, it's a short week after a physical Titans matchup. Not a big fan of how that one played out at all.
Yeah, that could be a tough one right there. And then the following week, we have another Thursday night matchup. This seems to be a common trend now with the schedule making. They give some of these Thanksgiving game, or the teams that play on Thanksgiving, they let them play again on the following Thursday, just so you're spacing things out a little more evenly. So the Ravens will be playing another Thursday game on December 3rd, hosting the Dallas Cowboys. That's another interesting matchup. I'm happy that one is at home. We knew that before the schedule came out, but based on the offense that the Cowboys are building, again, they added another, CeeDee Lamb. That offense last year was really threatening. You had CeeDee Lamb. Again, we'll have to see how good their defense is because their offense could put up a bunch of points and the defense will just give up. They put up 30, the defense gives up 31. I mean, that could be the story of the Cowboys. So we'll just have to see what type of team they're going to be, and by Week 13, we will definitely know what type of team the Cowboys are. Thankful that one is at home. We talk about it all the time.
You got to see who's quarterback at that time, right?
For the Cowboys?
If Dak holds out and this thing gets ugly,
I don't see that.
I'm just saying it's not likely, but it's possible.
Yeah, I'll say that.
Not likely, but it's possible. Yeah, Dallas led the league in yards per game last year. I mean, that game could be a shootout for sure.
Now, not as big of an advantage as your typical Thursday game because, again, both of these teams are going to play on Thanksgiving, so they'll have a full week to prepare. But we talk about it all the time. Being the home team on your typical Thursday night game gives you a huge advantage. So that, again, goes to what Ian was saying, applies more to the Steelers on Thanksgiving. They will have a huge advantage being the home team, primetime game on a short week. But then the Cowboys game both.
And the last time the Ravens played the Cowboys at home was the Super Bowl year. And I want to say, I can't remember who their kicker was at the time. They recovered an onside kick and had a 51-yarder to win it late. And they missed it. That was the game Ray Lewis tore his triceps. I remember that game. But yeah, this will be the first time they've played them at home since that 2012 season.
Was it Dan Bailey, I want to say?
That was what I was thinking, but I don't know why I was freezing on it. But that sounds right to me. He kicked for them for a while, but I do remember that game vividly.
Coming down the final stretch, we got another one. Division matchup on the road, prime time. This one scares me maybe the most of all Ravens road games. Cleveland on Monday Night Football, December 14th. Depending on where Cleveland is at that point in the year, even if they're bad, that crowd is still going to be amped up for that one. They hate the Ravens. The Ravens are coming off of a 14-2 season. There is just a ton of bad blood between the two fan bases. If the Browns are winless at this point somehow, if they are winless coming into this game, that place will still be rocking, and they'll be trying to knock off the Ravens coming off of a 14-2 year. They hate Lamar. They got to stand by their guy Baker, even though he's not looking so hot right now.
And the Ravens responded really well in prime time last year, so I don't want to make it sound like they can't win those types of games. But you'd much rather not have to play road night games within the division. It's a tough spot, like you said, and gives the home fans some more time to get all gooned up and make noise and make things difficult for you. I expect that one to be another game that, if Cleveland ends up halfway decent, maybe that's a game the Ravens are underdogs in later in the season as well. But yeah, I think that one will be a hotly contested matchup as well.
All right, and then after a bunch of tough matchups, that's a tough stretch there. Titans through Browns. And those 3 primetime games in a row with Pittsburgh, Dallas, and Cleveland. You get the final 3 weeks of the year, and after a tough stretch, I mentioned this, I tweeted it, really favorable final 3 games. So if the Ravens find themselves in a scenario where they are, we assume they will be a guaranteed playoff team, and hopefully at this point will be trying to get a hold of the number 1 seed in the AFC. But if for some reason they find themselves still grappling for the AFC North, whether it's the Steelers or Cleveland or both that are right there, within a game challenging them, really nice to be playing, again, the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Bengals, and have 2 of those 3 be at home. I can tell you the Jaguars are going to be bad. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, well, Minshew Mania, show some respect.
No, they could be I don't know who's going to be the worst team in the league. It might be the Jaguars, could be the Redskins. I don't know who's going to have the worst record in the league this year. But I can tell you the Jaguars are probably going to be bottom 3 easily. The Giants, I'm not going to be as down on them as I am the Jags. I don't know what Daniel Jones is going to do this year. How big of a jump is he going to take? Is Saquon going to be healthy? How banged up is he going to be in Week 16? We'll have to see. But they could be a threat. But, again, it's nice to have that one at home. And then the final week, you have the Bengals. I don't know what they're going to be like with Joe Burrow. Some people seem to think that he's going to come in and make them a competitive team. I don't think anybody's saying they're going to be a playoff team, but a lot of people are really high on the impact that he's going to have right from the get-go. Week 17 makes it interesting. Being in Cincinnati makes it interesting, but I don't know what Cincinnati's going to be playing for at that point. I assume they're just going to be playing the role of spoiler, and it could be like last year. The Ravens could have everything locked up going into Week 17, and RG3's making the start there. We don't know. So,
you're not playing your starters this time in Week 17 if that's the situation arises?
We'll deal with that when we get there. I hope, I'll say that, because we're going to talk about this here. I know you wanted to get to this. I hope we're in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're in that scenario too. Plus, that game's going to be another one, like with Lamar being from having played at Louisville. There were a ton of Louisville fans there last year, and be interesting to see if he feels any pressure to go out there and play in that particular environment around, all the Louisville fans that flocked to Cincinnati last year. Let me tell you, man, they were everywhere. There were just as many Louisville Lamar Jackson jerseys as Ravens Lamar Jackson jerseys. And the fans traveled really well for that one. So I think it'll be interesting. So what we're going to do now, we're going to play a little true false. I'm going to be like a game show host kind of format here. I'm going to ask Nolan some rapid fire questions about the schedule. He's going to give me his thoughts. True or false? The Ravens will start the 2020 season on September 13th against the Cleveland Browns.
True. I'm hopeful.
Will there be fans at that game?
False.
No fans?
No,
really?
I can't. I'm optimistic that the season will still happen at this point, but I'm not completely sold on mass gatherings. So sort of middle of the road on that whole scenario.
There will be fans back by week 5. True or false?
What is that? October? False.
Damn, man, you're gonna take the whole year from me, aren't you?
I think so.
You think they're gonna play the whole year without fans?
Well, it's sort of like let's just say for the sake of argument that there's no fans on week 1.
Right.
If you're the NFL, would you feel comfortable? Like, I know they want the money and the at the door revenue of having people go to the games, but we all know it's so insignificant in comparison to the TV money. So would you feel comfortable if you're the NFL, you started the season with no fans, saying around week 6, week 7, somewhere in the middle, like, yeah, now we can have fans come back? I just feel like if you start the year with no fans, it would just be easiest for the NFL to say, nah, let's just go through the whole year without them. As much as I know they want that extra money at the door, the teams are going to be the owners are going to be the ones clamoring for fans to be there more than the league itself. But as far as the actual decision makers go, the at the door money, the ticket sales is so insignificant in comparison to TV money that I think they'd be willing to take the hit.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I hope you're wrong. I'm over this entire thing at this point. Overall, not to take it to coronavirus places, but I mean, at some point we've got to get back to normal, and this shit's got to stop. And whatever happens, happens. Like, it's just the long and short of it is it's not sustainable to keep living in this way. But all right, back to football. The Ravens will be the number 1 seed in the AFC this season. True or false?
I wish I would have looked more closely at the Chiefs' schedule. I'm going to say false. I think it's really hard to go back-to-back like that. But I don't know how many wins you're going to need to be the 1 seed. Is it going to be 13 or 14? Because, again, I haven't looked closely enough at the Chiefs. But instant reaction, I'll say false.
And with the Chiefs being the team that takes that spot, right?
Yeah, them at 1 and the Ravens at 2.
That means no first-round bye. I think I could get on board with that. I don't know if the bye screwed them up last year or what it was, but that loss from last year is going to stick with me for quite a while. All right, here's one more then. The Ravens will win the AFC North by 3 or more games.
Ooh, I think they definitely win it. 3 games is a lot. I'll say false.
False. Which team finishes in second?
Pittsburgh.
All right, I like it. I think I agree with most of that we went through there. I think Pittsburgh probably finishes second. I could see Pittsburgh and Cleveland kind of having the same record, poking around at 9-7. The Ravens finish 11-5 or 12-4. Don't know if that'll be good enough to win the entire conference, as you said. But we'll see how it works itself out. But I don't know, man. I'm just hoping we get to watch NFL football. And listen, if I've got to sacrifice a year of going to games, I guess I'll get over it. But the thought of an NFL game without a crowd is depressing as shit. And I hope they allow them to pump artificial noise in or something, because that's just going to be lame. The KBO stuff is one thing because nobody really cares and it's something to watch. Hyunsoo Kim's raking, by the way. But once we get in, the NHL and the NBA are going to have playoffs without fans. You know how boring that's going to be? It's not going to feel much like a playoff game. The atmosphere is part of the fun. I hope we don't have to learn how to live in a world like that. But we'll see. Not my decision to make, obviously. So I am hopeful, but as you said, skeptical that will happen.
If I'm looking on the positive side, this is something we mentioned last week. the time between now and the start of preseason even is so far away. I mentioned how long just the month of April felt. To go through April, how long that felt. It felt like 3 months. So, but it was only a month. So we still got to get through the entire summer. I know if OTAs and then, training camp are impacted by this, that's obviously going to have an impact on the season or the performance of the players. But the time between now and that first preseason game even is so far away. And then the time between now and September 13th is even more. So I will remain optimistic that in that long time frame of multiple months, at some point this summer we can return to normalcy. All right, we'll leave it at that. No need to get more down in the dumps. But there you have it. We talked about the Earl Thomas situation, talked about the Ravens' schedule. Hopefully we have football, but that's episode 101. Talk to you next week. Right now, I don't know what's on the horizon this coming week for Ravens, Orioles, or any of that stuff. But we'll have something. I say that every week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we always come back and we have something to talk about. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hello, mates. I'm Jack.
I'm Kenny.
And welcome to Rock and Roll Up, the music and wrestling podcast.
Here, you'll find our weekly music and wrestling podcast with our signature wacky comedy twist.
So wacky.
Expect news,
special episodes,
controversial hot takes,
and comedy features such as Kenny's rant,
Jack's joke of the week,
and of course, pun association,
musical fruit,
John Lemon.
So wacky.
So like, comment, share and subscribe. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher and SoundCloud.
You can get involved with the conversation at Rock Roll Up Pod on Twitter and at Rock and Roll Up Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Are you ready to step inside the ring with these two heavyweights?
Big time.
Peace out.